hear us properly.
We're gonna test it.
We're testing something out. And if you're just hanging out with us, that's fine. This isn't like a super formal thing. In fact, might even get deleted depending on how bad it sounds.
Yeah.
It might be fine. The episode of the podcast, this is episode 10.
10. This is our 10.
It's gonna
We made a comeback.
but we just, we've been recording some podcasts. There's 2 that we don't have on here, obviously, but we will be doing the other ones. But we decided to kind of, have this available. So if you want to hang out with us during the podcast, we're not really going to be paying attention so much to YouTube as much as this right now. And normally I'm not going to be in basketball shorts and this in a hat. But, he said, let's do it. And I'm like, yeah. So,
We're gonna try to improve the audio too. It's kind of weird right now.
oh no, we're definitely going to improve the audio. We have a fan over here because the room's hot. Maybe in the future we'll set up a little thing here. where you
I'll
can
try to
hear.
moderate if you guys come on. I'll keep an eye on it anyway.
Yeah. And if you don't, that's fine too. We don't expect there to be dozens of people. We expect there to be maybe 1. If not, 0 is fine too.
This is sort of our behind the scenes for our podcast, if you're not aware.
It's been a while. Hi,
yeah.
YouTube.
You guys are gonna get some of the fun behind the scenes stuff before all this goes up and gets edited and all that. So yeah.
Indeed.
So we're recording.
Okay. Good. Well, all right.
Hello.
Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the podcast. The Big 10.
10.
We made it to 10 episodes. Well, 11 technically, but we'll just say that.
Yeah. I don't know if 0 really counts for much. so-
Well, 4.5. It was a solo episode. Anyway, today we've got some things to talk about. We have some lives possibly on YouTube that are filming this, so we'll see if they live on actually staying, which will be fun. Because if you want to watch us in video form, this isn't going to be the high quality
No.
audio version.
It's live.
You know what you could do? You could technically just like sync it to what this is later. I don't know. It doesn't
I
matter.
could. Yeah, I could.
That's a lot of
We
work.
could put no, because you guys are gonna see stuff that's not going into the podcast.
Oh, true. Yeah, there'll definitely be things that get skipped.
Yeah, we always end up cutting a few bits here, out here and there. So you get to see all the embarrassing falls.
Probably for safety.
Yeah.
But well, today we've got a few topics to talk about. But first, we were going to talk about the most recent Strixhaven.
Yeah. So there's a few things in the world of D&D that's new. So we have Strixhaven. They've released a few updates. I was actually looking at the Unearthed Arcana because they released the subclasses that we were planning.
Yeah.
As playable, but it looks like what they've done is they had such negative feedback. They said, "Okay, we're not going to add new subclasses."
Oh, way to ruin a good thing.
And I guess they're gonna add some character options instead of new classes. So we'll see how that goes. But the Unearthed Arcana is available if you guys kind of want to get a flavor of what's going to be coming. We basically added a bunch of subclasses for most of the casters. I don't think clerics got anything, but the druids, wizards, warlocks, and bards.
That's what I was. I love Warlocks.
Yeah.
My charisma skills. One day, we do a lot of world building on this. One day we should just talk about favorite classes and why.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
Favorite so far.
Yeah. Yeah, favorite so far. We've only played several now.
Yeah. Haven't played everything yet. I really want to be the wizard. It's I haven't really played a lot of classes.
Yeah, you toy around mostly with the martial skills, which is really
So
cool.
far, yeah.
But wizards can be fun. They're squishy.
I try to balance the party in a way that can be a character that I'm least interested in.
Where like you run out of spells, you're like, okay, everyone protect me, I'm useless.
Yeah, I mean that will be fun to do as long as the party can support it. If everybody's like ranged casters, then a crappy little wizard's not going to be a good addition.
Yeah, right now you're playing a monk in
Yeah.
our let's say home game because we used to live stream like everything. And
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah, we did.
it's kind of nice to have a little private game. We might do those again in the future. People have asked. But yeah, definitely check out Strixhaven stuff. That looks like it's coming along pretty cool. I love all the artwork that's coming out with it.
I'm excited for it.
It's gonna be fun.
It's basically Hogwarts experience. You know, schools and classes,
Yeah.
but you don't have to be a caster to play the campaign. So it was like they were finding a way to work everybody into it. So.
Which is kind of what we're doing with this current thing that we're doing, is that you don't have to be rogues, or you don't have to be whatever the backgrounds are, or like in this case Hitman is part of our.
Don't have to be rogues.
You don't have to be like a rogue or a bad guy to be a hitman in this. In fact, you can be whatever class, race, whatever, and it'll come together. So I like that they do that, because if you pigeonhole them into a
Casters
certain
only.
thing, yeah, it's like it gets boring. I mean, it might be fun, but it also gets pretty
It
restricting.
could work, yeah.
Yeah.
You'd have to subclass something. It's still kind of forcing players to do something that they may not have otherwise chosen.
Well, and that's a good thing about D&D, is that ultimately, well, in tabletop role playing in any aspect, is that there's so many options. It sucks when people don't take that good way, which I feel like they're always going to, because good feedback is not going to come from, sorry, you can only do this. It's like, that's such a railroad.
Yeah, people don't like it. It's not.
No, and that's the joy of it, is that you can be anything and anyone and with any background, and then when you shut it down, no one knows. Anyway, is there anything else that we're?
Oh, the other thing, so this group, might have heard of.
Who were they? We only did like a whole campaign based off of that.
So they're releasing more material for Tumblr.
No,
So
nice.
we see we've been
There's a pretty cut half and half, but I feel like if you like them, they put out some good stuff. Definitely good to look at. At least the D&D content, whether you like them or not, the content is there and it's plentiful. So use it even if you don't like them. I have both their books. They're like world books. They've got plenty of other stuff too, but I like them. Wildmount and Tal'Dorei. I don't know where my Tal'Dorei book is, but I know where my Wildmount book is. You might, actually. Because you were DMing at the time.
I missed the whole thing. I'll do it for myself later.
The mystery will unfold.
I moved twice since we played that campaign, so
Yeah.
I'll find it.
Yeah. No pressure at all. But yeah, anyway, the point is that I have those. They're definitely good material. There's some cool stuff. I like how he pieces together his world, which is something that I've modeled after in some of the campaigns that we've created and that we're currently creating and recreating. There's some announcements to come.
I feel like you played well.
Yes, and what's cool is that, and sidebar, this is kind of like, we're talking about our world, but this is part of world building. I feel it's necessary.
Yeah, you learn and admire from other worlds.
Yeah.
You try to do what you like.
Take like the city of, Emon, for instance, his main city in like Tal'Dorei. What's cool is that in like subsections of Emon, he'll have like little side quests, and it'll say like for groups of 3 or whatever.
Oh, yeah,
and like he has these cool little like side things that have nothing to do with Emon except for like random things that can happen.
Right.
Which, as a DM, especially in a pinch, they're like, I'm gonna go a complete opposite direction. And you're like, well, nothing's that direction, except this that's also happening.
Yeah.
Which,
Key random NPC, which was previously.
so I like to create NPCs and things like that based off of that. And I really modeled a lot of how I built my worlds based off of that kind of structure of having availability, not going too much in depth. Info dumping your characters is never a good idea.
Right.
But having things available in
You
case.
see every size lazy.
Listen, I love Matt Mercer for his many talents, but one thing that drives me crazy, criticize if you want, I sometimes get a little bit like, listen, as much as you want to Tolkien this and like really go down in depth and describe every detail of the area, sometimes I want to picture it. Use a few descriptors, but going way too far, I'm like, I get what you're doing and I appreciate it. And I love how he just like builds off of it. And he's got a wide vocabulary as a voice actor, but sometimes I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, let's just get moving. This is
I really like Sanderson's approach, and I'm not sure if he's using somebody else's approach. He probably is, but Brandon Sanderson says when you are offering exposition, it needs to move from a character point of view. It needs to be something that they're experiencing. as well.
Absolutely. I actually I was listening to a podcast on the way over about world building
Yeah.
because I like to keep my mind fresh, especially when I'm going in. But he was talking about that. He's like, what a creative way for a writer to put something into his world isn't to just do the show and tell method, and that can be effective
Yeah.
and use it sparingly. But you don't want to have. I mean, there's two sides to this. You can have like the butler talking to someone else being like, did you know that there's going to be some marauders coming through town possibly? I heard that that's coming. Because that creates this like, oh, I know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, but rather
What's-
than an
what's the
organic
word?
conversation.
Try it.
Because it's not
Yeah.
an organic conversation. And sure, it could be happening.
Yeah.
But if you do that every time,
Yeah.
someone's going to be like, okay, dude, find
Well,
a different way.
it's like the hero forcing the save, you know, or the hero getting saved by somebody who, like, either previously hadn't been introduced or like, it comes out of nowhere. It's blindsided.
Yeah, and it kind of sucks because you're like, it makes you feel like, oh, you think I'm stupid. Like, I can't figure this out myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. But cool.
It's a lot less exciting too, isn't it? So, what are we talking about today?
Well,
Previously we discussed.
well, we discussed the baddie, and we discussed where we're going to be starting these players in, at least where we see it being a cool start. Because I mean, you could literally start in any location, and I feel like with what we're kind of describing, and if you don't know this, those that are watching live, of course you would. Those that are no one's watching live yet, because you started at a weird time on a Thursday. We don't expect you to join. We're just kind of testing out this audio. But what I was going to say is, what's really cool about creating this kind of world is that it's kind of a Legend of Zelda in that kind of setting. Oh, I'm going to stop for a second. Just
Yeah, sorry.
a minute.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, anyway, it's kind of a Legend of Zelda type of setting, the world, so to speak. Not necessarily in Legend of Zelda or like any kind of Zelda game, but we're using that kind of parameter to build our world into.
Yeah.
And as far as what the characters are going to be, we drew, if you remember before the podcast, which some of you may not, we roll for it and we see what happens. And right now they're going to be hitting it. And in the world of Zelda, and there was a monarch that was really-
Tyrannical Monarch. Yeah.
which we ended up picking
Rivali.
Rivali. And I need to look into more, which we're kind of using him as like the placeholder.
He's the format. It's not
Yes.
literally Rivali.
Yes, and I think that needs to be made very clear because some
Yeah.
people are in their heads that could be like so focused on the target and less on the world around it. So anyway,
Pause real quick. Hello from the Orkney Isles. We can't.
yeah.
Am I saying that right? Orkney? Orkney Isles.
Oh,
Where are you located?
oh, nice.
Polecat Gander. Can you hear us okay?
It's not great audio. We know that.
Yeah.
We are testing this out, so if you want to hang out with us, that's fine. We're doing episode 10 of our podcast, which 8 and 9, but not 9 and 10. No, 8 and 9. Yeah, 8 and 9 have not been released yet.
Dr. Polecat Isles is out. Greetings from Scotland.
I am totally jealous. Our families are from that area, British Isles area, and
Yeah.
Scotland area. So
Yeah.
my white skin does not lie.
Gotta go visit from there.
Well, thank you for joining, even if it's just for a little bit. We
Yeah,
appreciate
if you guys feel like the audio's weird, let us know, and we'll take a look at it.
It's
We'll see what we
we
can
know
do.
it's not going to be perfect.
But if you can hear us, don't worry about it. It's just yeah.
We've got a fan going and we understand, but we're just kind of testing it out, and we may potentially start doing this permanently.
We'll figure out how to work this in with the mic setup. And
We'll probably get a mic attached to the
Yeah.
camera.
Yeah.
That would help.
Yeah, it was just kind of a last minute choice today, so yeah. Thanks for being with us.
Being
Windy.
part-
Windy. Well, let's try turning off the fan, see if it's not too comfortable.
I'm fine with that. Yeah, we're good.
We'll see how it goes.
So how did you find us? Have you been following us for a while, or has this been kind of like you just happened upon us? We realized it was probably very loud. In fact, I'm probably talking much quieter now.
It's quite warm here. You know,
We
it's,
live in the edge of the Mojave Desert.
yeah, so
And
it's
if you're
it's
familiar-
literally 90 degrees at night, 90 Fahrenheit, which is what 30 Celsius roughly.
Yeah, if you ever played Fallout New Vegas, it's kind of like that, with all the
yeah, yeah.
we're in that same area.
Yeah, we're literally less than 200 miles away from that. So yeah,
Yeah, we'll manage. Getting a little uncomfortable and hot is fine.
yeah, we'll see how it goes.
I think audio.
If I start sweating bullets, then we might change it. But
yeah,
yeah,
I'm
we
more
like you guys, but I'm not willing to suffer quite that much.
for like an hour of pain.
Anyways, train of thought. What were we discussing? It was
Sorry, you say train. We were talking
sounds
about.
a lot better.
Yeah, definitely. I knew it would. I knew it was gonna be horrible with that. Because we've
with
done
that being so, the camera's so close to that fan, it just
I'm sure
the
it's,
mic with the microphones, it's okay, but
But don't worry, anyone who's listening like to the the recording before, they've stopped by now. You know?
Yeah, we've lost the audience, so it's
They're
perfect.
completely gone. It's okay. This is a test for us and you.
And you.
We appreciate
Thank you for being willing to be our guinea pig here.
I don't know what possessed you to come here, but we're glad you did for at least the time.
Yeah.
Anyway, you know what? This is kind of history. This is before we got our stuff together.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we were talking about was we're world building right now, and Rivali was the character that we were doing
Right.
placeholder.
Rivali. Yeah.
We're doing our. I almost want to say Rivaldi, and
Rivaldi.
because I'm thinking
Vivaldi.
Yeah, and then so I'm like,
There may have been inspiration there.
I'm like
who knows?
combining it. But yeah, and I feel like as a placeholder, he's a good one because we kind of made him this kind of fallen paladin, so to speak. He was supposed to help, and then he ended up
Not
trying to.
necessarily fallen, but he's still sticking to his ideals. They just
Right.
they're suppressive.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing about paladins in a group. If you don't play them carefully as well. I mean, if he's trying to help the protagonist complete his goal, they ended up killing the bad guy, and then this protagonist will call you just Link for now until we find a good name for him. Or some entity, not necessarily one person.
Yeah.
It could be a hero party, like a group of heroes that had succeeded.
Yeah.
And then they just were like, listen, we're not from this time, or we're not from this area. We're just going to head out.
We're gonna go home now.
Gonna go home now. And so,
Forrest Gump. I
yeah.
think I'd like to go home now.
So that's what they did. They pieced out and went home. And anyway, Rivaldi, this character, so to speak. Rivali. I'm going to butcher it at least 10 more times.
We're going to give him his own name.
He is definitely.
We won't have to butcher the Legend of Zelda
I'm like
names.
almost to the point where I'm going to pull up a generator
Yeah.
NPCs that I have, and then I'm just going to put them out there.
We'll come up with that between this episode and the next.
Yes. I want to flesh it out a little bit more.
Yeah.
We're in the process of fleshing out something else right now, and it's taking up all my energy and all of his energy.
We're doing a lot of campaign building right now.
Yes.
A lot of it.
Yeah, something that I had released before just as kind of a gift to like patrons, and then I gave it to other people, and then I charged people like $1 for it. it was just kind of a thing I did, but now we're fine tuning it to make it really nice and to look good, and also have my art, because I actually do digital art now, and I'm not perfect at it, but it's better than what I used to do.
Yeah.
So I definitely want to.
That's the whole point. Better every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's our goal.
New techniques, new skills.
But anyway, so today, I mean, we kind of played around with him last time.
And we had started to discuss a little bit how we maybe wanted to have the different cultures be literally different races within fantasy, within
And we
high
were
fantasy.
thinking that it would be to stick with kind of because it's our parameters to stick with a Zelda type setting. And in Zelda, at least the ones I've played, I haven't played every one, is that the races tend to stick with their
They
little
segregate.
culture. They
Yeah.
have their
Largely.
and that's a big part of it. Which and you can play that if you want. Obviously, talk to your
In
players.
Hyrule, they tend to be quite mixed, even though they're mostly human, but they're quite mixed compared to the other places.
True. You go into
Yeah.
like a Goron city, and you're not going to see a bunch of elves hanging out, or Zoras
Right.
or whatever.
Which I think is kind of what they're getting at, because in normal society you have your rural areas where everybody seems to be like predominantly one race or another, but then when you get to the big cities, there's a lot of mixing and mingling.
Right,
all
and
that.
we made it kind of a fun thing is that we're kind of starting these players, at least in our minds. It makes more sense to us is to have something specific
Yeah.
because we could just broad create a bunch of stuff and no one uses any of it.
Yeah.
But if you use something and fine tune it and make it nice, it's a lot more playable, especially with a DM who's just like, look, I want to do something kind of fun to start a world in. I don't necessarily need your world because
Right.
that's what I do.
Yeah.
You know, like what you did with Taldora, you had the idea, and then you kind of just like did your thing within that city. And
Yeah.
so
Well, that's just kind of how things played out. I mean,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, not
Like
you.
we were-
You
like-
had a plan.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody wanted to go the other direction most of the time, so which we dealt with and we played it the way you guys wanted to play it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the trouble of making plans.
Yeah, and that's kind of how you grow as a DM too. Like you learn how to push certain things along when you need to, and
Bring them
get
back
back
when
in the
they need to.
story, and spend less time on the less important stuff.
The
Sometimes
minutia,
that's fun, but
the minutia makes games interesting. I
Yeah.
feel it's just
you
like
get the character moments during the minutia.
for sure,
Yeah.
and especially like the downtime. The problem sometimes can be is when you role play too much,
Yeah.
and then little story gets done. Where we literally stayed in a shop for like 45 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe more.
maybe more, and it was a whole episode.
Choosing colors and threads and like all kinds
It
of.
was crazy.
Yeah.
It wasn't entertaining to
Neither,
watch. I'm sure.
none of us really care about clothes, but for some reason that's how we played it.
It
The
was-
characters did, I guess.
It would have been. It fit the story, but it wasn't interesting. You
Yeah.
wouldn't put it in a book. You
No.
you would say they went to this place and got that.
Actually,
Depending on the book.
Wheel of Time that I'm reading right now.
Okay, he
was
would.
a
He
little
would
bit
add
too
it.
much detail on dresses and such.
He would add it.
Yeah.
Well, in this case, though, we feel like starting in a Gerudo type place where it's like separate.
The Outcast.
Yeah, kind of the outcast group, because that
Yeah.
way, especially because they're hitmen, and we had to play that into it. So we're thinking they start as kind of a. What did we kind of decide? Was it definitive where we said that Zelda? I'm gonna keep doing this because that's not their names.
No. Yeah.
Zelda gets overthrown
Yeah.
or
That's.
attempted assassination or
Mhm,
something, or she
mhm.
pretended to die and became Sheik.
Yeah.
Sheik.
Shika.
Shika.
Yeah.
I'm not. I love the games. I
Yeah.
don't know them very
I'm
well.
assuming I'm pronouncing that properly.
Yeah,
It's-
even if we're not, everyone knows who it is.
Yeah.
Her boy alter ego or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
her like fake stuff.
Her assassin alter ego.
Yeah,
Who,
so
who
that-
Link assumes is a boy in Ocarina. Yeah.
That's what I'm basing my knowledge
Yeah.
off of, because that's like where I played a lot of.
But
them.
there's, in Breath of the Wild, there is an entire culture that is Sheikah.
Yes,
So
I did learn that.
Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of our idea is that they're basically either Sheikah or they're Gerudo or whatever.
Yeah.
Outliers, so to speak, where the world exists and the kingdoms exist, and they're probably saying this is fine. They're like, well, we're sad that Zelda died or whoever
Yeah.
disappeared or whatever, but at least we have Rivali.
Yeah.
I did it. So at least we have Rivali, but the thing about bad guys, they're really good at talking most of the time, especially
Yeah.
ones that are leaders and tyrannical. At first, they don't start
Yeah.
off with some hard.
Charisma is a hard part of what they have.
Yeah, and they don't come out with the hard, strict laws right away. They make it
Mhm.
make sense, and then they kind of make a group of people that push it out and make it harder for other people. I mean, it's like so it happens in our history. It's going to happen in this one. So we imagine it wasn't like overnight he takes over. Everyone's like, you know what? We could all fight him and get this over with. But if he took the power source,
Yeah.
what we talked about, I mean, he would have power.
Yeah.
But anyway, so
Which may be corrupting, or it may just intensify parts of his personality that makes him domineering.
yeah, and maybe people like that about him. Maybe
Yeah.
they're like, you know what?
It's a
So-
strong leader.
The last ruler was very pensive and didn't do much, and
Mhm.
he's just like, listen, we need to just take out these bandits. We need to just take out these people. And
Mhm.
he really is just like, let's fix this.
It's a lot about control.
And
yeah.
so people are like, yeah, let's do that.
Mhm.
And then it's just not, but it's too late by then.
Well, maybe the control's working out perfectly fine, other than people start to get hurt because it's way too intense.
Yeah, or it's not so overtly like I was describing it. Maybe it even could be more like a subvert thing that he does. Maybe he has to keep his power. He has to do something dark that involves groups of people, like the sages. You know how there's always sages. At least the one I know. I love that game. But
Pull
anyway,
from whichever Zelda lore you want. There wasn't a rule on that.
that's the one I pull it from. Pretty hard on. That one, I feel like having a bunch of sages from each group, and maybe he controls them. Maybe they know, maybe they don't. I don't know. We haven't really discussed. But I feel like to control each person, because that's what they were really over, right? At least if I remember, the sages were over.
Ocarina of Time, they protected the temples, which were used to seal Ganon.
And they still Ganon, but also the people pretty much lived around most of the time
around temples.
Around these temples.
Yeah,
Isn't that true? Because almost every place you'd go to, it was always a new civilization.
Basically,
almost always, I felt. At least in a couple.
Maybe not quite the desert one.
No, but even so, the Gerudo people were out there, and so it was kind of their area. You know what I mean? Not necessarily their city.
Right.
But I feel like if you're going to have sages or something that's like controlling forces of each of these groups or each region, so to speak, and we haven't discussed how many there are going to be. I'm going to start drawing maps and some ideas, but I don't know.
No, I like this idea. You could have a number of sages that would be.
It gives quests.
Protecting keys to Revali's power. So that could be.
Well, and if you're starting at level 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever, you're not going to be able to fight him. And he's a seasoned warrior.
You could have the temples be, the dungeons that these characters are going into.
That's kind of what I was thinking too. Because then we can kind of.
The sages could sort of be the boss of the level or whatever if they're under Revali's.
Well, if they're hitmen.
Yeah. Hitting the sages, taking out Revali's power, or taking control over his.
It's not fun, but it would make it interesting to have having a really well-known general or leader or sage or mystic or what have you of this area that you're going to. Let's say you're going to the swamp area, and he's like this shaman, and he's like this really important guy, like the wood, like the forest elves or whatever.
Yeah.
And everyone loves him, but secretly he's been so corrupted, he hasn't come out. And so the party's like, well, now we know where he is, but it's such a labyrinth to get to, and he's the world that he normally was beautiful, this garden, like even like a maze or something that was used like as ceremony, but now it's like this corrupted with vines, and I mean it creates this whole like you're going to kill someone that like this guy is one of the heroes of the war.
Yeah.
And now we have to go kill him.
Saints of the world.
And we have to kill him to lessen the power of that guy.
Yeah.
Which, I think that's such a cool difference because instead of trying to save them, because that's typically what you do, if you're hitman, your job is to take people out.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't be just going after them to save them. They'd probably use them as targets.
Right.
We can always just say the hitman for the main guy, but I feel like that would make an interesting. Let's face it,
you can't go straight to the main guy. He'll kill you.
No. And I feel like that's important to do. Remember what happened in Ocarina is when he first saw Ganon, it was like...
He knocked him on his butt.
Immediately. And then he blasted him. It was like he hit him with his horse and he's like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, you were trying to do something? You're an idiot. And blasted him away. So I don't know why he didn't kill him, but what do you...
Yeah, well...
But I feel like that would be a kind of interesting twist. Because if they're hitmen, it's darker. It's a little bit...
Yeah.
More, it's like The Witcher. He's not necessarily there to fix the problem as much as he's there to just do his job.
He's not necessarily evil either, because
no, in fact, he's more of a white knight, except
he tends to side with the monsters.
He sides with who's good in his mind.
Yeah,
and I feel like with hitmen, their job is to take someone out.
Yeah,
and what they decide how they're going to do it. Maybe if you've ever played Dishonored. I love Dishonored. I love the structure of how the missions are done. I didn't play the second one as much as the first one, but I know they kind of stuck with that theme, but in Dishonored, no spoilers, but if you go into a mission, you can either kill the guy or people or whatever, whoever your targets are, or you can get like an ultimate revenge by doing something else to them. In that first one, you either go and kill him, which is fun. You can find any number of ways to do it, which your characters probably are good at, especially as they get higher levels.
They're supposed to be, yeah.
Yeah,
it's their job.
It's their job. But what would be interesting is even if we had an alternate, like 2 options in each area, like they could decide how they're getting their revenge.
How to
Because
do it.
hitmen don't always just kill. Sometimes they're sending a
And
message.
you'd want to give options to the players too, because not every player's going to play it the same.
Yeah,
Some players like to blow everything up. Some like to do more subversion. You know,
Yeah, that's true. So having an alternate option in each of these, and not this isn't something maybe we won't create necessarily. I might. Actually, it sounds kind of fun. I might do that. You know, but I feel like if you have options available, I'm speaking to DMs at this moment, if you have options available, it makes your players feel like they're in control. And you have a couple options available. You have to, because
Yeah.
your players are going to go right when you want them to go left. Almost
Yeah.
always.
Yeah.
And no matter how you plan it, it tends to be the case.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like that could be fun. What do you think? Is that something that we could create?
I definitely think that fits.
Like temples, because you do
Yeah,
that
it,
in
absolutely,
Zelda.
it absolutely fits. I mean, that's absolutely one of the standards.
Always. They give you an
Yeah.
item, you go to that place with that item to fix
Yeah.
it. Done.
Generally, everything's temple-esque anyways. You know, Breath of the Wild doesn't use as much temples as it does sacred beasts, which are
Puzzles.
temples. I mean, yeah,
Walking
it's a
puzzles.
big structure with the puzzles. So yeah,
Same thing,
Yeah.
just different beast. Anyway, I wasn't trying to pun. It wasn't even a good pun. It was just.
No. No.
But anyway, the point is
I
that
didn't even get it till just barely. So
I feel like we can very easily create those, at least a couple, and let the DMs have the format to do it themselves.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
I don't do them all or you don't, make a few. I think it'd be fun to like split them in half and be like, you take 3, I take 3, or whatever,
yeah,
and just see what we come up with. Not telling each other what they're like, and see what kind of enemies they'd be.
I wonder if
I think biomes would be easiest.
you could do biomes, and it'd be interesting if you set up. You could set up an item requirement structure too.
True.
Um,
Kind of like you need this to go into
you
this
need
place.
the grappling
need this
hook to
go
get to
into
this. You need the bow to get to this. Yeah.
I mean, I almost want to require items as mundane as that. Not necessarily magical, but
yeah.
I mean, let's face it, a grappling hook that launches you 60 feet or whatever.
That's quite magical.
That's pretty magical. Yeah, grappling hooks don't
we don't
typically
have
work.
that stuff.
No. So I mean, I could definitely grab a couple items and make them. They're not hard. I make items every day.
You do.
So
Check them out on Instagram. Catch One Official.
Thank you. I feel like if you're following me on YouTube and haven't followed me on Instagram, that's where I live.
Yeah.
I kind of I want to live on our website, but we're developing that. We'll get to that.
Website's developing.
Yeah, way in progress. It's moving forward now
Yeah.
because we're both working on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so bosses, sages,
Sages.
I feel like
Based on biome.
those are guys you're killing, and then we make items off that. That's a simple task.
Items that you can't get to this temple till you have the metal boots that sink you to the bottom of the water.
Which is going to require someone that can either breathe underwater
You need the blue
or
tunic.
or some kind of water breathing potion,
Yeah.
which is hard to get because they're super rare.
Yeah.
I feel like making magic items rare and potions rare makes it a lot more fun because then when you find something like a water breathing potion, everyone's like, "What? How did you get that?"
Right.
That's crazy. I mean, magic is pretty plentiful,
It'd
and
be pretty fun, like, if you built those types of requirements into the dungeons.
that's what I'm saying. It might be fun.
The characters still try to brute their way in, like,
Oh, they could.
what kind of consequences
Look
you
at-
can build into that.
There is no way, unless you just tell your characters you can't, which I don't feel
That's
like
not
is
the right
viable.
way to do it, yeah.
And you should not. And I don't want
You
to
can
tell you what to
discourage
do,
them.
but don't do that.
You can discourage them, but don't tell them that they can't do stuff. That's pretty
Say to them,
discouraging.
it looks like you need a seal, and it has a symbol of the desert
Yeah.
on it, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's pretty darn easy. I need to go to the desert,
Yeah.
and they do, and it's kind of this fun thing, and it's like a scavenger hunt, so to speak.
Right.
It's like you pick up items. I want to play this.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking about it now, and I'm like, this sounds fun to me.
I mean, they make a good game.
They do. They know what they're doing. The structure is there, and
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not kidding. I want to run like a little one shots on each temple and see
Right.
how they work and
Play test them. Yeah.
I-
Absolutely. But if you want to playtest the idea, let us know.
Yeah, we're happy about that. We absolutely can do that one night.
Yeah.
I can set up a little Discord thing. We just roll some dice.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. All right. Anyway, but yeah, I feel like having items, 100% is what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
I feel like I want to put my foot down on that one. That one's Sage's
It's not exactly a Zelda World event, but it feels
but
good.
it's very much
it feels
part
good.
of it. It's part of the progression as your
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
What's annoying is that when you don't know, like old Zeldas, old games where you're like,
Yeah.
how in the world was I supposed to know
Yeah.
that it was behind this planter?
I needed the Master Sword to kill him.
By the way, I've already drawn the Master Sword. Fun fact. Whether we use it or not,
okay.
I've been playing around with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, how cool would it be to have? It's kind of like, you know, in Strahd with Ravenloft and everything. It's the Sun Sword, you know.
Yeah.
You use that to kill him. But
Yeah.
this would be like the hero sword
Yeah.
that he left behind in like a stone, but they can't get it
Yeah.
until they have all the seals, which help. Oh, you know, like
Yeah.
that would fit so well
Yeah.
with the lore. And then whatever character gets to use it,
Yeah.
you know,
I wonder if we could build in some kind of subversion there.
definitely. Well, and they're not the
It's a
altruistic.
fake, you know. The sword's a fake.
Oh, they're not the altruistic type. There was that once, wasn't there?
In Zelda.
Was it in Super Nintendo Zelda? Was it Link to the Past?
It could be.
Where there was like that fake one. It was like a fake Master
I'm
Sword.
not remembering it for some reason. Yeah.
I'm really believing that there was. So we could.
I think there was some kind of monster based on a sword.
Yeah, maybe.
If maybe I'm. I don't know.
I'm sure people in the listening are just like, I know.
Yeah.
I get it. We are nerds. We're just not the most competent nerds, and that's okay.
That's right. I played A Link to the Past, but I was really young.
Wait, you don't remember everything from when you were 6?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that being said, I feel like what would be interesting is with those items, getting some kind of magical weapon to be something to. You don't necessarily need it.
Yeah.
You don't.
Well, and
They could
it's
skip
not
all
like,
of it.
It's not like Rivali's the Dark Lord anyway. So.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
So, but it could be a benefit.
It could be a powerful weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether they want to get it or not.
Yeah.
Whether they want to go through all the tasks or not.
Yeah.
Because what's cool about D&D, you could literally say, you know what, screw that. We're going to find a way to fly over these traps and
Yeah.
walls and
Yeah.
buildings and whatever that's blocking the way and these labyrinths. Let's just go straight to the source. Let's eagle into Mordor situation.
You can actually do that in Breath of the Wild.
I know that. I actually saw someone do it. I was like, that's
Put
insane.
stasis on an item, whack it a bunch of times, climb on top, launch it straight into Ganon, and you can fight him at 3 hearts, very beginning of the almost the very beginning of the game.
I saw someone do it.
Yeah.
It was like,
Some people have so much time to figure that stuff out.
sidebar, the combos
amazing.
that people can create
It's amazing.
and weird stuff that they do, like launching a guy forever away and shooting an arrow like way over here, and
Yeah.
still hitting him. Like, there's a point where you need to do other stuff, you know.
Listen, you're too good at this.
At some point, it's got to not be fun anymore. I don't know.
Yeah. Whatever floats your boat.
It's like when someone plays Skyrim for the 800th time because they refuse to put out more content.
Even if they did, some people would still just play Skyrim.
They will. They always will. It's like people that go back to like Contra and it's like it sucks. Like Ghosts and Goblins.
Yeah.
I love that game. I want so much to beat that game,
Yeah. Good
but
luck.
I never
Good
will.
luck.
And I know that, and
Yeah.
I've accepted that part of my life. I've come to terms with it, but I still want to do it.
Yeah.
But like Skyrim, it's like I only play it on like normal or something because I'm not going to play it on legendary because I don't want to hit someone 1,000 times with a
Right.
sword.
No.
Same type of restrictions that we do with these.
Yeah.
Like we make this world, you do what you want with it.
Yeah.
We're not saying that you have to get these items, which I feel like if you want the full experience, they're going to probably want to.
You could totally avoid this huge conflict if that's what your characters want to do. Like, hey, we don't want to fight Rivali. We want to do something else.
Yeah, ultimately that is
Go
up
do
to
it.
them, and you cannot control them.
But you could have consequences for that, which would be interesting.
Well, it's like, for instance, the Seijuku campaign that we're playing right now,
Mhm.
which is going to be released eventually. I definitely do. I've created so much with it over the last year and a half.
Yeah.
The whole point is that I told them when I started, I made it very clear the campaign story will continue without you.
Yeah.
And I kind of was like, I had this idea, and I don't know if I heard it from anyone. I'm not saying I made it up, but it's definitely something I've stuck to, is that I'm rolling to see what happens. I have a timeline.
Well, we discussed that when we were building our last campaign. Maybe that's what you're thinking.
Maybe,
We
because I
discussed
was like,
that.
I don't think I
Yeah.
created the idea so much as I use it very strictly because it's fun. It's like you guys get to
The
do
world
whatever
doesn't
you
hold still
want.
for you. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys do whatever you want, but I'm not gonna hold back on the world doing what it's doing.
Yeah.
Right now, the Drow are fighting, and it's like they're fighting the locals, and it's been a big battle all back and forth. And I've rolled, and there's been moments where I'm like, well, the Drow are just gonna leave. They're losing so bad, and then other moments where I roll, and it's like an event that is supposed to happen on the timeline based off of where you guys are at, and because you guys went forward or backwards in time depending on what's going on.
Yeah.
Not to be too vague or confusing, the point is that everything's continuing whether you do it or not, and that's why I feel like with this world,
Do the
you
same
don't
thing.
have to do what we're setting up. In
Yeah.
fact, it might be just a fun world to explore.
Yeah.
I think it would be a really fun place to explore.
Mhm.
Maybe cause battles between these different races of people, and like find like a really cool way to incorporate your own madness into this.
You could, depending on the players, you could sort of meta it. So you could say like, level 10 required to enter this temple, kind of thing.
Yeah, or at least say, and maybe
It's a plaque. on
you
the
know
temple.
how we talked about how we talked about how with exposition how you don't just say it.
Yeah.
That's kind of the same rule. You can actually say that without saying it. Be like, as you approach this temple, you feel this aura of dread,
Yeah.
more so than just the liminal feeling, but like it's your core that says, I should not go in here
Yeah.
until I'm ready. Because then you're not.
Players will go in anyway.
You're not saying they will, but maybe throw something big at them. You know what I like to do, and I haven't really done with you guys too much because you guys are pretty smart. But if you weren't, this is what I would do. I would have a big monster that was hard for you to fight. Like I would make it really hard for you to fight, and then I would have another monster come in as a cliffhanger and kill that monster with one hit,
Yeah.
and then it would run into the dungeon or something, and then you guys would be like, we almost died to that one, and he just came and killed another one with like one hit.
Yeah.
Maybe we're not ready for
Yeah.
that, because it helps them realize the dread behind it.
Yeah.
But these guys are so lucky; they could probably still kill it and have no problem.
Who knows?
Depends on how lucky
If your
your
party's large enough, you can just.
I mean, you guys don't even have healers, and you're still just destroying everything. Maybe because you're all DPS characters. I swear, you're support, but you still do. Would you do 101 damage?
I
the other
wasn't
day?
expecting it to be a DPS character, but he's turning into that.
Well, yeah, he's killing everything.
Yeah.
He's a Kensei, right?
Part of me wonders if I'm just playing him wrong. I need to do some reading.
I allow it.
Like I read all the abilities, and then sometimes after the fact, I'm going, I don't know if I was supposed to be able to do that.
Well, at least at the very least, no matter how you guys make up your party or however your characters or whatever, you come with NPCs additionally just in case you need them, which kind of like allow exposition without being too heavy on it.
Yeah.
Definitely don't use them too much. Anytime these guys are like really questioning something, they would question this guy named Zafane, who's now dead. Rest in peace.
His name was Zafane.
his name was Robert Paulson. But I always have some kind of NPC nearby. That way, if they're like, "What's the history?" I'm going to talk to so and so. And it really was like sometimes I would roll for him whether he knew or not, but other times it'd be like he would absolutely know.
Yeah.
But it made it easier than you guys like me saying all of it. It was characters saying it.
Yes. Yeah.
So we'll add some of that into it where there'll be these like important characters in each city, and it's not going to be totally fleshed out. We're not going to spend years on this. We're just going to spend a good amount where it feels good to set it up.
If the last one was any indicator, it'll probably take us about 8 episodes to have a
I feel like we're getting pretty close, honestly, right now. I could sit down tomorrow and, based off this, come up with some really good names, come up with some map, easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and that being said, gonna take this time to mention, definitely check out Incarnate Map Makers. If you haven't checked them out, they've got this free map, and this is not like sponsored technically. No one's paying us to do this, but I really respect them. They've given some free content to me before, and it was just like out of the goodness of their heart. They didn't have any requirements. They're just like, hey, you talk about us a lot. Here you go. Super cool. But yeah, the point is that you've got to use the free stuff out there. But if you ever want to, they have a pro, like they have, Incarnate, but then they have like a free, like a thing where you could use it for like a year for like $20 or something. I don't remember what their pricing is. Not a lot.
It's not very
for
high,
what you get from Pro.
There's a great amount of free content too. Like I've built maps with their free content. It's great.
It's really good.
Yeah.
It's not like when you're using free content, you're just like, oh, I get one thing and I get this one thing, and it kind of looks like a map or whatever you're doing, and it's just not good.
Yeah.
This is like you can make a really respectable looking map, and if you don't know how to make maps, look up other people's maps using it, and then kind of play with it. And then the second one I want to mention, somebody really great, is Haxtech Dice, and we talked about them a little bit last time. They're amazing. They did give me some free dice. I talked about them.
Shout out, yeah.
I just talked about them a lot, and they were just like so cool. I even moved, and they sent it to the old address, and they never forwarded it to me. And they just like stole my package. And I told Haxtech, I'm like, listen guys, I'm sorry. And you know what they did? They sent me 2 new sets of like really nice dice. Now I'm not talking about like just like basic, plastic ones you can buy off like some random shop or whatever. I'm like, these were like amazing metal dice, like inlaid. They're beautiful. Mm-hmm. So definitely check out Haxtech. These guys are really cool people, and they've got high reviews too for that reason.
Incarnate.com, like INK, Incarnate.
Yeah, like ink.
And Haxtech.com.
Yeah, definitely check both those people out. And if I'm not saying you have to give us stuff for us to mention you, but I have a really good rapport with both of them, and I feel like they're quality people, and we try to lift everyone up at the same time. We're small, but they were small once too, and who knows?
Yeah, just talking about people we like.
Yep,
they've got great products.
Absolutely. But yeah, is there anything else that you can think of with this current section, what we're talking about?
I think we pretty well covered different.
I mean, without going into
regions,
so much detail.
Biomes. We haven't really covered races, but that might be.
That's what we're gonna.
That's
have
something to think about a little bit more.
I feel like when we play around with it, we're gonna use pretty typical races. I think your mic you bumped in. It's doing a little thing.
Oh no! I'm sorry.
Yeah, move it. Just squeeze that back and forth. Yeah, that's better. It was doing a little buzz.
You're hearing it more than me.
No, it's good.
Okay.
Well, I know because I have that same brand, not the same mic.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, what was I saying?
Different.
Oh yeah.
Races.
When it comes down to planning out the races, we'll play around with it. They're going to be pretty close to, in some cases, to Zelda. In other cases, absolutely not.
Right.
Some of them don't exactly exist the way that we wanted
to. The occasional exotic, maybe 1 or 2, but
mostly pretty general elves, dwarves, humans.
Stuff out of the handbook.
It's something that it resonates with people without having to do too much research.
Yeah.
We want this to be a world that you can just jump right into. And if you want to replace them with someone else and make their culture a little bit more specific to what you guys like, it's your game. We're just kind of making the skeleton of it.
So no, what was it we did on the last campaign? The Sverfnebly half orcs on the on the island.
yeah, that's true. You can go
Mad Max style.
that was pretty hilarious. I would love to see that. I would really love to see like a Mad Max style Sverfnebly and
half orc
Goliaths or half orcs or something. They just like hang out on them and go. That's awesome. I love it. Which and maybe the next one will roll something like that. Who knows? But yeah, I feel like that's a pretty good stopping point because we've got a lot to do with that, and we really need to start writing some of this down more so to like really. I remember most of it, but I feel like if we're going to really start creating characters to jump to the next podcast, we're definitely going to have to do that. So that's our job. Your job is to listen to the next one because it'll be coming out whenever we finish
If you
this
guys
one.
heard things that you like or you have suggestions, feel free to let us know.
Definitely. We've been doing this for a while, but there's many people who know a lot more than we do, and we highly respect a lot of the listeners who have been very generous with information for me, especially when I was DMing back in the day and I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
And it was great because there were so many people, even in the live chat, who were like, I have a question. And it was like, they already had like posts from like things that I could just immediately pull out. So
Yeah, and you never know. Some things just spark an idea that you maybe wouldn't have had otherwise.
And yeah, and on that point too, I was going to say something about that earlier too, is that when I listen to podcasts, a lot of times I'm not using the world they're creating.
Right.
Most of the
Yeah.
time I'm not. In fact, if you don't, I get it.
Yeah.
But we're going to make this cool. So it really makes sense if you do at least look at it. But if you don't, I hope you got something from it that you can use. I'm sure you can. I know about every podcast I listen to, I get like just one or two things that I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
going to use that later. So, but yeah, well, anyway, thank you so much for listening. Those that came on YouTube, I mean, really,
Yeah,
thank you.
we had a few of you. It's been a while since we've done really
We're gonna do it
anything
more.
like this, so
We're gonna do it more.
Maybe see more of us.
I've been dealing with a lot of stuff. Obviously I've posted about it
It was a
before.
weird year and 2 years.
Yeah, and with anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress, all this stupid stuff that we just kind of like ignore forever, and then they just built up during the quarantine. And it's like, oh, guess what? This is gonna be here now
Right.
and forever, and
Right.
you have to figure out how to maneuver your life with it, not around it, because
Yeah.
it's coming with you.
Yeah.
We had to make some adjustments, but I feel like we're now getting to a point where we're working together again
Yeah.
a lot more because jobs are
It's-
aligning where
yeah.
we have times, and we're gonna make some cool stuff.
We're
We
cranking up the
really,
productivity.
he's been making some cool stuff, and I'm
Yeah.
excited for it. And I've been really putting in time with the art like every day.
Yeah.
And we're
Yeah.
gonna find a really cool way to make the stuff I've already made better, and then our future stuff by far better than that. So we're just gonna get better
Yeah.
and better and better. So, so thank you so much for watching and listening, and may your roles always be natural ones.
Just not natural ones.
Please don't. They're awful, unless it's story driven. All right. Well, we'll see you guys later. I'm gonna shut that off now.
Good plan.
See you guys. Thanks so much for joining us. Ow, the sound in my ear. Bye, guys. Love you.
Bye.